Hey everyone, it's Types, and today I'm super excited to be talking about the Mini League, specifically Event 1, and this is going to be a critique session. I'm going to be talking about it, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and I want to get this out of the way first. I really like the format, but I think there are definitely some things that need to be changed, and I think the creator of the format also knows that some things need to be changed. And it's like in a very beginning stage, so that's fine. But I want to talk about what's good and what's bad. And honestly, I'm going to be a bit harsh on it in this video, but as I said, I enjoy it. I think the concepts are really good, and I think all in all, it's created pretty well. But there are a few problematic cards and some problematic concepts that I think made it a bit less friendly for players. So, first of all, what is the mini league format or the mini format or whatever you want to call it? So it's singleton, so you can only have one of every Pokemon and one of every trainer. So keep in mind there are a few different versions of certain Pokemon, like Croagunk. There are two different Croagunks, two different Jigglypuffs. You can have one of each, but you just can't have two of the same Jigglypuff. Something like that. So you need to have a wide variety of Pokemon, which is kind of interesting. It means that the decks are all going to be have a lot of different things going on. There's also a very limited card pool, which I'm going to pretty much go over the whole card pool. Talk about pretty much all the cards, except for the trainers. To be honest, there's not too much to say about the trainers. All the cards are pretty low power, though. The Pokemon are super low power. You'll see the Pokemon, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, these are super weak. And they're all pretty balanced, though. And so talking about balance is a bit important, and that's what I'm going to be touching on. But generally, they're all very weak Pokemon, basics that evolve into better stage 1s and stage 2s, but the basics are all very weak. So that type of thing. And the trainers, they're a balance around stuff like, for example, berries in this format, which is the same as Hop, Tierno, Sharon, or How. So a simple supporter that draws you 3 cards. That would be about balanced in this format in terms of trainer level. Nothing too crazy, but the trainers are not too bad, but not too good. And there also aren't a lot of them. And then in terms of energies, you can only have 3 energy of each type. Basic energy. There are no special energy here, presumably, for now at least. And then you need at least 15 Pokemon, 15 trainers, and 15 energy. This means at least, I guess I said 3. Should have said 3 energy per type, but 3. You have a maximum of 3 energy per type, meaning that you need at least 5 types of energy. If you do the minimum 15 energy, which is pretty much what everyone did. I played in an event, obviously, earlier in this, which I'm not sure what order I'm going to release this in compared to the actual event gameplay footage, but the footage should probably be coming up tomorrow. And honestly, it's just like me running through it. You can check it out. It's kind of cool seeing my thought process and seeing what other people play as well. Just if you want to get a bit more exposure to that format, it's pretty cool. But so everyone pretty much has 15 energies, and people try to keep their Pokemon count pretty low, so higher trainer counts. I'm going to touch on that a bit later, though, to say why I think it would be possibly better to switch up some of the stuff involving trainers. But let's go into the Pokemon, and so we can see, I guess I forgot to talk about these symbols in the top right. There's the red X, which means that I think this is bad, it's underpowered. Not necessarily horrible for the format or game, but it's just too weak and should probably be cut for that reason and probably replaced with something just a little bit better. They're not too problematic, but it would be nicer if they were more relevant. Then the blue X, it means that the card's overpowered. This probably needs to get removed. It's not necessarily horrible. There are only a few things that are overpowered. They're not completely game-breaking, but there are some things that need nerfing a little bit. And then the smiley face is just something that I think is really good. Really fun, really captures the idea of the format being small attackers, kind of longer games with interesting, yet still very simple interactions, followed by a more complex strategy. And then also just something really fun that's just really great and has a lot of interesting, yet still, as I said, basic combos. And then we also see this gray thing, and that's just something that's very boring. There are a number of cards that are the cards are all very simple. That doesn't mean they're boring, but there are some that are too simple and therefore really boring. No, I'll touch on those. I imagine some of you will think pretty much all the cards here are boring. I promise you they're not when they're combined in different ways. And also, weakness and resistance play a big part, so that's important. And then this fifth symbol, this like toxic explosion thing, that's just cards that have horrible synergy with the format. They make the format much less fun to play in, and or they don't necessarily ruin the format, but they don't synergize with the ideas of the format or with other cards in the format. So I'm going to talk about that, and that's probably the biggest issue. Really, the other ones are just fun commentary, but there are some serious changes that need to be made, I think. They're not super significant, but I think this needs changes. And if you're thinking of making new card pools, make sure you keep in mind this advice for how there are certain problems with this card pool, so you can apply them later. I might touch on the second pool. As I said, this is event 1, so if you want me to talk about event 2, comment that down below, and I can touch on that. I think it's pretty interesting, but I haven't really played it. Arguably, I think it's actually a bit more interesting, which is kind of cool, but who knows how this is going to go. So let's talk about the different packages, is what I call them. And they're all pretty interesting, but some are certainly much more interesting than others. And so there's one for each type, and then there are certain combos that are pretty obvious that I'll talk about as well, and then there's like colorless. So the grass package here, there are only 4 Pokemon that are grass attackers. And so that's not a lot, first of all. That's pretty underwhelming. So I wish there were a few more. They don't necessarily have a ton of synergy either here, but I said they're really interesting. We see Sewaddle and Seedot as pretty defensive Pokemon, which is kind of cool. I'm not sure how good Seedot is, but I think Seedot could be super strong. You need to keep in mind that it could become overpowered if you drop the HP of stuff a bit more, and or the damage output, and if you increase the damage output, then it's really bad. So Seedot's on a very sketchy line. Debatably, it will need to be cut from this if you need to, depending how the format's changed, but Seedot's an interesting card. Sewaddle, a very defensive card that just takes less damage. And then it also has an attack that's pretty underwhelming. So not like an awesome card, but it's okay. I put it in my deck, and it was okay, certainly as a tanky Pokemon. Then Spinarak, you see the smiley face on it. It's really good and really fun. Not overpowered, but I think it encapsulates pretty much all the great things about this format, and honestly about Pokemon as a whole. It's pretty weak with 50 health, not the worst, but not the best. Its attack Spider Scram does for 1 grass, so it does need a specific type, but it's only 1, so it's not too bad. Your opponent's active is now paralyzed and poisoned, and then you put this card and all cards attached to it to the Lost Zone. So you can only use this attack once per game. That's really important. It's annoying because it paralyzes and poisons, but it only stops your opponent for 1 turn. So it's not the biggest deal in the world. It does combine, there's a Lost Zone package and like a poison package, and both of those are pretty solid, and Spinarak just slots in perfectly with both of them. It's really fun. It's not super annoying. Sometimes paralysis can get super annoying and poison can, but because you can only use it once per game, it's not like super toxic or anything. So I think it's really fun, really balanced, just a card that is super good in this format and probably one of my favorites. I think it just fits perfectly in, honestly, a ton of formats. I mean, if you have higher damage output, it's not very good. But Spinarak is arguably a bit too strong, but I think it's fine where it is. Venonat here, it has like one of those setup attacks. It's a bit weird. It's not like the strongest, but I don't know what to think about it. Its flop attack's super generic as well, so it's a bit of a boring Pokemon, but it's okay. I like the setup attacks, and I think we want more of them, honestly, in this format. There aren't too many, and I think they could be super helpful. But now the Fire Package, and pretty much every type has 7 cards, but some are only colorless attackers. So Grass has a ton of colorless attackers, but Fire has 6 fire attackers, and this type is boring and it's bad. So one of the big things is typing, and Fire type's not in a good spot. I don't know why, but it just feels bad to play Fire. There's Water, and it's just really good in this specific format. Arguably, if Water gets toned down a little bit, then Fire will be much better, but I don't know. Fire's not that good, even though it hits weakness on grass and metal, which makes it seem like it could be super good, but it's just not that good. Only a few of these Pokemon were played in the different decks. A lot of them are super boring too, like Litwick, Tenon, Sleep. Like, that's boring. Tepig, just nothing special about it. Slandage just is poison. The only interesting one, I guess, is, well, Charmander's okay. You can use its colorless attack, punishing your opponents for dealing damage to it, which is kind of interesting. And then Growlithe here, being able to recover cards in a coin flip could be really good. Its 80 HP is really big in this format, and its ability to do 60 damage is super threatening, although it's 3 energy, 2 of which are fire, which means you only have 3 fire energy in your deck at most, so that's a big commitment to it. And really awkward to set up, but it can be a really powerful attacker, like a sweeper almost. So I think Growlithe is really cool, but quite frankly, the rest of these Pokemon are pretty underwhelming. So I don't think the type's very good, and just doesn't have a lot to stand on, with most of its Pokemon here being very generic and boring. We do have the water package now. You see that blue X, meaning this is overpowered. I don't think the winning deck played it, but the tournament, like, realistically, the results don't matter too much. But we see that water has 6 cards, so only 1 colorless, and then also there's a dragon type that's exclusively water type. So that's kind of interesting. Quite frankly, Manaphy and Cragnole and Marill are really good. Cragnole, 10 for 1, and Item Lock is super good. I thought it was broken, and I think a lot of other people thought it was broken. It's not super broken, arguably because they're debatably the best attacker in the format's metal, but Cragnole's ability to do 10 for only 1, which isn't that bad. It's certainly okay, but then Item Lock on top can just shut your opponent down. Items aren't crucial in this format, but I don't know. I think Cragnole, I don't really love its place in the format. It's not super interesting, and it's also a bit too strong, especially with 90 health, which is just massive. Then we have Manaphy, which has an ability that lets it essentially search for Pokemon. You can kind of dig through your deck with Pokemon. If you start Manaphy, you're in a super good spot. You can also attack with it. It's also Jirachi, which is similar, but it puts itself to sleep, and you can't attack with it and use the ability at the same turn, which is a pretty big deal because now you can't get double benefit. And honestly, 30 for 2 is very solid. It's not amazing, but it'll get the job done. So that's pretty strong there. It's one of the best Pokemon in the format, I think. And then Marill as well. Only 50 health, which is, I think, keeping in check. But 20 snipe for 1 water is super solid. I guess it has to be to the bench, but honestly, it's really good. It's really scary, and the Let's Go Rollout package is already good, which I'll talk about later, but Marill is somewhat problematic, I think. So, yeah, we'll get to it, though. Meryl's not the biggest offender, but you'll see. Also, we'll talk about Popular later, but we see Wishy-Washy here. Also very solid, in my opinion. Shuffle Draw 8 for 1 colorless is amazing. I didn't use it enough in my games. It would have been so good. Its ability to just reset your hand is insane, especially when drawn this format's pretty inconsistent. So I think Wishy-Washy's really good with this draw attack, and 20 for 1's not bad either. The big issue, unsurprisingly, is its 30 HP, which is just atrocious. Something like Manaphy will just one-shot it, stuff like that, which is all over the place. Also, I think Horsea is a bit underpowered. I think possibly something just a tad stronger would be nice. I'm not sure. Horsea's not horrible, but if you like remove a lot of the better cards, Horsea's okay. Otherwise, you need to add in a slightly better card there. And as I said, we'll talk about Popplio later, although it is bad. So, yeah, that's what I'll say for now. It's kind of useless. You never want to attack with it. Lightning Package. This is probably my favorite type here, and it's really interesting. None of this individual Pokemon are super cool, though, but they're all solid. I think my favorite might be Chinchou, and this ability to do 10 to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon for 2 energy, 1 being a lightning. You also see the resistance to metal on most of these Pokemon. And I believe this is the first type with the resistance we're looking at. Resistance can be super solid. It didn't come into big effect in the games I played, but it seems like it could be really good. And also, the weakness to fighting is a bit awkward, but you see the weakness and resistance, and I think a lot of Pokemon with the resistances makes the format really fun because you can just switch in and out of different Pokemon and then go in and just like mess up your opponent because all of a sudden they're doing 20 less, which is massive in this format. That's the majority of their damage most of the time. So we see Chinchou being a little bit of spread, pretty cool. Electabuzz just 30 for 1, super solid, and then you can't use it next turn. So it's good, especially because water's good. I'd say Electabuzz isn't amazing on its own. Doing 30 across 2 turns is mediocre, but it's kind of cool, and 80 health is also very solid. See a Alolan Geodude with 60 for 2, which is absurd, but then it kills itself, which is also absurd. So I don't know if this card's good or not. I think it's weird. The threat is kind of cool. I'm not sure if I love it. Also, it's very similar to Pikachu, which is, I think, a bit more versatile. It has paralysis on a coin flip for 1, which is certainly very solid. Is it the best? No, but it's okay. And then Volt Tackle, which does 70 for 3 and then 10 to itself, meaning it's not super tanky, but like 70 is good, but then hitting 70 is amazing. I think Pikachu's very solid. The issue is 3 energies a lot, so Alolan Geodude and Pikachu fulfill similar purposes, but they do it a bit differently. Also, Voltorb, pretty similar, 40 for 2 lightning, and having multiple of the same type of energy in your attack cost is a lot. Because as I said, you can only play 3 of each type of energy, so you're going to struggle to pay this attack a lot. But 40 for 2 is pretty solid. Voltorb might be a bit underwhelming. It's a bit boring, but I think it fits in the package nicely. And then Pachirisu, 70. 20 for 1, very solid. This card I thought was going to be overpowered, and then I realized it didn't quite have enough synergy with some of the other things. But Overshort, Lightning, do 20, but then you can discard all tools before you do damage. And if you did that, then you do 40 more and paralysis. So that probably gets the one shot. If not, they're paralyzed and they probably die next turn. So that's insane if you hit the tool. Otherwise, it's pretty underwhelming. But Pachirisu, quite frankly, they're on a lot of tools, which is unfortunate. It means this card, this whole package, which could have been super cool, was just underwhelming, unfortunately. So package, really cool. Probably my favorite one out of this, but again, the lack of tools, the lack of support for this makes it feel just a little off. But I think it was solid. I don't think it's, as I said, I didn't look at all the decks, but I think it's pretty solid, and I like the design philosophy here. Now, Psychic, and boy, there's some stuff to talk about here. Croagunk, well, we're gonna see that later. Not too interesting. 10 and discard energy on a coin flip. I think it's cool. It's not crazy, but it's fine. And so, yeah, kind of fun, but nothing crazy. The coin flip crushing hammer aspect of it is, it's okay because you're going to do it over probably a bunch of times. Mediocre damage, but it feels very okay to use, and I think it's one of the almost defining Pokemon in this format because it's very just solid. I don't actually know if it saw much play, though. Jigglypuff, another lesser rollout, which we'll talk about, but it's probably the weakest. I think Meloetta, the Sing attacker, the Sing package, which we'll also talk about later, which is, both of them are a bit problematic in different ways. The Skorupi, I didn't even know this Pokemon. I knew it existed, but I've never seen its name before or said it, but it's fine. Hone Claws is whatever, allowing you to do 1 or 90 next turn. It's not that interesting, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And we also see Trubbish just being bad. Mill is trash here. There's almost no control, but there are a few random control cards thrown in. They should probably be removed because they're kind of useless. I don't think anyone's looking for control either. The formats are already slow. So I think Trubbish is kind of useless. 30 for Psychic Colorless. Colorless is kind of bad as well. And it's so bad. Trubbish is trash. Yeah, I don't think we were looking for Trubbish in this format, unfortunately. And the Psychic package isn't that bad, but it doesn't really function as one cohesive thing, which is a bit problematic. You have Croagunk as a tech, and also Skorupi if you're playing other Psychic stuff, but that's it. The rest aren't really Psychic Pokemon that are playable enough in their own right outside of other packages. We also have Coughing here, which you see that first time of this symbol, which is problematic. You may be thinking, why is this problematic? Well, 10 for plus poison for 2 is okay, so that's not that big of an issue. But then its ability Blow Away Bomb that says when you discard this with the effect of Roxy, keep in mind you can only play one Roxy in your whole deck, and there's no other trigger off of Roxy. You may put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon, which is super solid, kind of cool, but it's almost never going to happen. And so the fact that this combo exists, it's so weird in this type of format. This is similar to GLC, but combos between 2 Pokemon or a Pokemon and a supporter very specifically aren't good. You're not going to get this off much. It's super annoying. There are a few other packages that I'll talk about that are kind of similar, where you play a certain supporter and then then a certain effect happens with Pokemon. But Coughing, it's only 1 Pokemon, 1 supporter. Sure, the supporter's good, but Coughing's problematic, right? Coughing's just, I don't think he deserves to be in this format. The attack's okay, which kind of redeems it, but I don't know. I think because you don't want these super specific combos. They're kind of silly. They don't quite work well enough, and in this inconsistent format, I don't think Coughing is quite what we're looking for. If you want some Poison Psychic Pokemon, which is very fine, I think you should just go with something that's not as weird as Coughing. The Fighting package. Now, this is the most boring package, I think, in the whole game. Fire is also very boring, but we see that same Croagunk, this time as a fighting Pokemon, which is fine. They both have Psychic weakness, which is kind of weird, but they're okay. Very fine. Rockruff, fine. It has Draw 1 for 1, which I kind of think is cool. You see Sandshrew, Let's Roll again, but then Dig Up. Look at the top card of your deck. You can discard that for 1. Fighting. That's okay. It's not that good, but it's okay. I kind of like, as I said, the setup attacks. They're very weak, but that's okay. Drag and roll at 20 and then 70 to a Pokemon with fighting resistance, which will then drop that damage back down to 50 or 40 is kind of weird. You don't really want to play this. The 3 retreat's massive as well, so that's kind of annoying. Gust in this format's super weird. I'll talk about that later. There's almost no Gust, though. Trapinch 20 and then 10 to all of your own bench Pokemon. That's brutal, but its high payoff can be worth it. So I think there's some moderately interesting cards here, but nothing that's makes me think this is truly interesting. So if you want to, I think Raggenrola doesn't belong here, maybe. And we need a little bit more spice here to make it interesting. Rockruff's a bit underpowered with Bite. Trapinch might be a bit underwhelming. I think we'd like to see a few different fighting Pokemon here, just to make it a bit more interesting. Fighting might be the worst type as well. Fighting's not the worst type. The worst type's blatantly obvious, but fighting might be the second worst type. The metal package here, again, pretty boring. We actually see that, all 7 of the metal Pokemon use metal in their attack cost. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I think it's good, though, meaning that this package has more stuff to work with, but you see a few problems here. Notably, we see that Beldum here is generic. We see Magnemite is generic. Clink is generic. Clink's also bad. It's 10 for 1, 20 for 2, and 50 health. That's so bad. And also, you see a lot of resistance, which I really like. Resistance to fighting, or resistance to psychic, resistance to grass, which is kind of cool. But that's about it. You see the weakness to fire, which is, I don't know, fire's not very good, but if fire was better, this would be scary. And we see basic Pokemon. Bronzor and Beldum are pretty generic. We see Togedemaru. I guess I didn't mark his. Well, I'll talk about Togedemaru later, I guess. And then Honedge, which is just so bad. Flip a coin if heads discard an energy, but that's just worse than the Croagunks. Jirachi is super good, but it's good, but it's not overpowered. Its Stellar Wish ability, of course, is stellar, allowing you to search out trainers, but you fall asleep and then you can't attack with Slap, which is actually very good because it's kind of what keeps Manaphy as a really good card. Jirachi's okay as a setup Pokemon. So I think it's good in this format. I kind of like it, but isn't that good? I don't know. Beldum, though, is cool. I guess I like it. Magnetic Lift as like a one-time Mallow is kind of cool. Where you search your deck for cards and stack it on top. That's kind of cool. But overall, Metal's kind of underwhelming. I've seen it played a lot, but as I said, I'll talk about why it's played a lot later. It's Togedemaru, though. And then Jirachi is very good as well, but the type's just so boring, so I think it needs some change. The Dark Package, this is underpowered, I said. It also doesn't, I guess I should have said it also doesn't have synergy with itself. You see Dino, which is, first of all, okay, I have a problem with Dino. It's attack 60 per 60, but on a coin flip it fails for 3. 1, that's kind of bad. But 2, it's super swingy, and I hate the swinginess of that. I think coin flips are okay as long as like a coin flip doesn't completely change the course of the game. And Dino's coin flip can. If you flip heads, you're in a super good spot. If you flip tails, you're in a horrible spot. So I think that's a really problematic aspect of Dino here. Then I'll talk about it a little bit later, but Dino's one of the main Pokemon that have that problem, that are like super inhibited by coin flips. We see Galarian Zigzagoon, but it's 30 for 2. So over a few turns, that'll average out a bit more. Dino, you're not attacking with a lot of turns, most likely. And the one attack can be super important just to obliterate an opponent's threat. Galarian Zigzagoon isn't that good. Its Headbutt Tantrum, which plays a damage counter when you play it, is okay, certainly. I considered adding it in, and it's kind of cool. Surprise attack is okay. It's a bit weak, but it's okay. Then we also see Alolan. We just see regular Grimer. It's going to get that mill effect, which is so bad, and then 50 for 3, much better than that Trubbish, clearly, which did 30 for 3, but is it really interesting? No, because Mill's so bad in this format. Like, I don't think Mill should be good either, but Mill is not good, which is fine, but keep that in mind, that Mill shouldn't be a part of this format because it's a slow format where you focus on switching in different attackers and kind of wearing each other out. That way, if you win through deck out by catching your opponent off guard, that's good on you, but the game shouldn't have decks focused around deck out. Again, just causing confusion it's kind of boring, kind of bad. I don't have too much to say about it, but it's okay, but not great. Spiritomb here is a card I really like, though. 60 health, no weakness, no resistance, which is interesting and unique. Is it good or bad? I don't know, but that's fine. Then Cursed Whirlpool, if it's in the active, your opponent's active can't retreat. Is that good? It's okay. It's not great, but I think it's fine. And then Curse Drop, Dark Colorless, place 3 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon anyway. You're like, that's really solid, right? You can just spread some damage. 30 spread for 2. 30 for 2 is very okay. 30 spread for 2, that's really nice. You can do it wherever you want, and it can just really mess up your opponent. I think my opponent, one of the games, played this against me. I don't remember. I think they won. It applies a lot of pressure if you can get it set up. It's not a huge commitment, but it's not no commitment either. I think it's really balanced. I think it's really fun, and I really want more cards like this in the format. How exactly, I'm not sure, but this card's just really good. You may want Big Parasol to counter this, though, quite possibly. I think that could be a nice inclusion to this format. Now, to the worst package, the Fairy package. Of course, there aren't as many Fairy Pokemon, quite frankly. There are 4 in total as opposed to the normal 7, and 2 of them are colorless attackers, and Jigglypuff's also essentially a colorless attacker. Flabébé, 40 health is bad. The Dark Resistance is fun, but Fairy type isn't enough of a type here, unfortunately. So Petal Blizzard, doing spread it's a very solid attacker, but you're never going to play it because this Fairy's so bad, so that's not fun. I guess you could theoretically if you're doing a Sing deck, but do you really want to play Fairy? Probably not. And we need a few more Fairy Pokemon, right? That's why it has that toxic green there. It's not fully developed. It's like people like to just put in a few Fairy Pokemon, but that's bad for a format. Fairy needs to either be developed or just out of the format. And either's okay, but Fairy needs to be better. And it's not. So this is one of the biggest issues that I think was just not thought about it a lot. I don't think it makes a ton of sense. It's obviously very bad, so I think it needs to get buffed up by adding a few more Pokemon. And there are certainly some Pokemon out there that will fulfill this. I think if there really are none, comment down that below. I'd be shocked though if there aren't any Pokemon that fit this description. I think there are some that are in a later bracket as well, but there's not a fully developed set of fairies there either. I don't think so. I think you need a fully developed fairy package, and that just wasn't the case here. And I think that's a bit problematic. Is it horrible? No, but they kind of just get pushed aside, unfortunately. Especially with the Sing package that I said earlier being bad. So, Dragon attackers, though, these are pretty cool. There was obviously that Goomy earlier, not really dragon, is in multiple types. But we see Noibat here, 50 for 2 specific types, which is a bit awkward to pay, and then you have to discard energy from it too. But you can theoretically do 50 over and over again, which is really solid, especially for 2. So it's a bit of a scary threat. It's a cool Pokemon overall to have. And then Jangmo here, lightning fighting, 20 and then 10 for each damage counter on this. This is very balanced. There's that Charmander, which does a bit more, that Goomy, which does a bit less. Jangmo right in the middle. Is it good? Yeah. Is it insane? No, but I think it's very balanced, very fun. And none of these are like amazing, but I like the idea of dragons in this format as well. Now, the colorless attackers, we see not too much to say about these here, except for Standal, as I said, mill is bad. Does it belong in this format? Probably not. Sandal's mill for 4. This is, I believe, the most expensive attack in the whole format. This seems so impossible to set up. Like, milling 3 is good, but is it that good? If you get this off twice, milling 6, is it good? Yes. But it's theoretically you can hit random cards enough to win, but I don't know. You can kind of hope that you survive because grass is bad, but they can probably 2-shot you by the time you've attached 4 energy to this. This is just like absurd, and I think this is a card that's really bad, and it should not be in this format. Vulpix here it's the most boring Pokemon here. It's a tech Pokemon. If you want to throw in fire to be able to hit weakness, you can do 10 for 1, but quite frankly, 10 for 1 is bad. There are Pokemon that do like 20 for 1, which are obviously just as good, not relying on weakness, and it's so boring. I think if you want something like this, a techable fire Pokemon for the colorless attack cost, that's fine, but get something a little bit more interesting. This is just so generic, only 1 attack, no versatility. It's not really fun at all, unless you want the whole thing to be about weakness and resistance, but it's not. There are other aspects, so Vulpix just is super boring. Also, Stunky, a bit boring as well, I gotta say. Overall, most of these Pokemon are pretty cool. Yamper a bit weird, but able to recover Pokeball and Great Ball. Arguably a similar problem to the Coughing, where it's only combos with 1 card, but now it combos with 2. Also, you can just ignore Ball Search. 20 on a Lightning for 2. I think it's a bit more interesting. With Psychic Colors, Poison on Coughing. They're both okay. Yamper, I don't love, though, because it has that same problem of the only combo with a few Pokemon or a few cards, but it's okay. I can deal with it, but do I love it? No. Should it stay? I'm not sure, to be honest, but it is what it is. And we'll also talk about a lot of these later on as well. Pretty much all the rest we're going to talk about. So they kind of fall into other packages that, as I said, we'll talk about that aren't type-based. And then we also see the colorless some more. We see those fairy, Cottonee, which is whatever, not fairy. Clefairy, Clefairy is weird. I don't know what to think about this. 60 for 3, is that good? Yeah. Is it amazing? It's pretty good for 3 colorless. And then if you can put return this and all cards attached to it to your hand, is that good or is that bad? You'd probably rather not do it, but it's not that bad. And you can stick in a Lily's Pokédoll from your hand as your new active, which, okay, that's probably not going to happen. Same issue as the Coughing and the Yamper, except realistically, they're both cards that stand on their own. Do they have synergy together? A little bit, but are they meant to be played together? Is that the main reason they're here? Not really. So Clefairy comes in, though, 60, return it to your hand, and you can send something else up. You probably won't be able to get Clefairy back into the act of hitting that 60 again, but I think Clefairy is really interesting, and a Pokemon that we got to watch out for. I think it's fun. I think it's interesting, but it's weird as well because it's the only like hit and run type thing. It could theoretically be really broken, but it could also wastes away at your attachments because you need to keep attaching to it every time you attack. So it's kind of cool, but yeah, I think it's fine. Now we get Apom and Hoot Hoot. These are both hard counter cards that also have attacks that are mediocre and stat lines there, whatever. But man, they're so specific with their counters, the counters to counters, and it's not like they're not that interesting. I put Hoot Hoot in my deck, hoping it would do something. It didn't. The likelihood that it's going to help you is so slim. Same thing with Apom. Theoretically, I think Apom could stay, but they just don't synergize with the format very well. Very specific, not very versatile or interesting, and they're both bad too. Like they're just not good. So Hoot Hoot having fighting resistance is okay, but not great. And Chatot also has fighting resistance, pretty interesting. We see the fighting resistance package emerge with Pidove allowing you to search out fighting resistance Pokemon. Keep in mind, this format doesn't have any psychics that resist fighting, which is interesting. I was a bit surprised by that, because I thought that could make good synergy with Pidove. That doesn't necessarily need to be there, but I don't know. I think it would be kind of cool to see a psychic Pokemon with fighting resistance also buff up that psychic package, which isn't overpowered or underpowered, but nice to see that become a bit more of its own thing. Pidove could also help out in that regard. And then we see Chatot with its lucky match on a coin flip. You return a supporter from discard pile to your hand, but it's not super impactful with the Chatot because the supporters are relatively low power. So getting Cats versus getting Tails isn't the end of the world either way, or like the play of the game. And then Glide, 30 for 2, Lightning Weakness, Fighting Resistance, 70 HP. Very solid stat line. It's overall pretty cool. It was one of those cards that I think everyone was considering putting in their deck. Does it belong in every deck? Probably not. Should it be cut out of every deck? No, I think it's nice in the middle. And I think it's cool. I think it's a very solid Pokemon for this format. Lillipup, very similar to, I think, one of the Psychic Pokemon, the Scorpion one. I don't remember what that one's called. But it's weaker because it's colorless, so that's fine. And then we also see Swablu as the Sing, attacker, which is bad. As I said, Sing is kind of bad. We'll talk about that a little more. Starly, which is kind of nice being able to search for cards, but it's not super powerful, and 2 energy to search for cards is a bit awkward. And we'll talk about the Birdkeeper package as well. But let's talk about the Poison package, which is the first serious package here, and that's not just a type package. Obviously, we see a lot of the grass package has gone to the poison package. That's why we don't have any grass attackers, which is kind of weird. Although grass package still works out pretty well, the ones it's got. Pretty much your goal is to poison them. Most of these are just poison. And poison certainly is its own gimmick on its own. But then we see that Bellsprout says you do 50 for 1 colorless if they're poisoned. So you can kind of take advantage of that with the Bellsprout. To be honest, it's a bit more of a theme than a whole package, but it's cool, and I think it's fun. I didn't really play the whole package. Someone did though, and it worked well. Stunky's a bit boring, and Salandit, they're debatably replaceable. I think Hacknea, which says if it's damaged, it poisons in return, and 10 for 1's whatever. And as I talked about Spinarak earlier, and Coughing. As I said, Coughing a bit problematic. Spinarak really cool. The poison package, I like. It's not the most interesting, but I think it's fine. And we see the Lost Zone packages now. You keep in mind that also the trainers. It has what are they? It's Lost Vacuum, which can Lost Zone 1 of your cards, and Lost. Oh wow, I forgot it. Lost Blender, yeah, which can Lost Zone 2 of your cards. So you can theoretically get 3 of your Pokemon in the Lost Zone, 4 if you attack with Spinarak. So you can be hitting 80 for 2, which is insane. Are you going to do that? No, but you can theoretically hit like 40 or 60 for 2. That's not crazy to think of. And so it is kind of cool. The Lost package is whatever. I think it's kind of fun. It's a side thing. Debatably, it should be thought out a little more, but then it could get out of hand. Nadu and Cottonee are the same, but just different types, which is okay. Having 2 of essentially the same attackers, fine, I think. Debatably, they should be a bit different, but I don't know how you do that exactly. Then we got Nadu, and Cottonee, which do 20 per Lost Zone, which is a high multiplier, but obviously you can easily have no Pokemon in the Lost Zone. 20 for 2 is also bad, so, and their 40 health means they're very vulnerable, so I think they're a bit underwhelming, because they're going to struggle to get going. So maybe this needs a bit of a buff. How you do that, I'm not actually sure. Possibly Colvis's Experiment, though that could be a bit too strong. So I'm not exactly sure. Lost Zone package is fun. Probably might need a little bit of a buff, but it's not horrible. And I played it, and I enjoyed playing it, although I didn't get a ton of use out of it. Now... time to talk about Let's All Roll Out, the one I kept talking about earlier. And quite frankly, so it says 20 for each of your bench Pokemon that have Let's All Roll Out. And so you can get all of them into play, be hitting 60 for 2, which is insane. Now, as soon as one of them goes down, you can't recover any of them because there aren't any recovery trainers for Pokemon. So I don't believe. So presumably you're just going to be hitting then 40 for 2, which is still very solid. Then 20 for 2 is obviously kind of bad. Although you do have a lot of different types to be hitting. But then it's very strong, and also they all have decent attacks. Meryl's 20 Snipe is very good, although it's 60 HP or 50 HP balances it out. The Togedemaru is 50 for 3, which is very solid. Its 80 HP is insane, and it's fighting. It's grass resistant. It's just so hard to deal with. You pretty much can't ever one-shot it, unless I guess you're playing fire, but fire is kind of bad. You got Meryl to counter the fire stuff as well. And so you can be hitting 60 for 2, 80 health with a resistance, only 1 retreat cost as well. So you can easily pivot out of it right before it dies or something like that. Togedemaru is just insane. I think Togedemaru should be cut out of this format. It was certainly the big card in pretty much all my games, and quite simply, Let's All Roll Out also doesn't. I don't love the idea in this format. Sure, it's fun, but if you already are getting lots of Pokemon out, that means your deck's in a good spot, your board state's in a good spot, and you're already at an advantage. Let's All Roll Out compounds that advantage with being able to do more damage, in addition to having more options and having seen more of your deck. So all of a sudden you're hitting big damage, your opponent has like no Pokemon set up, and you're just rolling through them. Prize after prize after prize. That's kind of how a lot of the games I did went. With Let's All Roll Out, was super dominant, super problematic, and you'd kind of just get cooked if the one person got it set up and the other person didn't. And so I think Let's All Roll Out's a bit too powerful and also very swingy. I don't think it works well in this format. Dropping Togedemaru would cut its damage output down by quite a bit. Arguably too much. It could put in, I think there's another Let's All Roll Out attacker, colorless one that's quite frankly bad, but just being there as a way to hit more Let's All Roll Out. It's colorless, so you never want to attack with it, but if you had to, it's not the worst. And then you can just kind of still be able to hit that 60 damage, but not have massive amounts of health on your side of the board as well. I think this is one of the more problematic things that's just a bit too strong, and notably that 80 health is a lot to deal with. Most Pokemon can't one-shot it, so that's problematic. Now we got the Sing package, the other problematic package. You see Popplio, Jigglypuff, and Swablu, all of the big red X, the big boring symbol. They're bad. They're super generic. Swablu, Popplio, Jigglypuff, they're all trash. Sing is trash as an attack. It just puts your opponent to sleep. Are you going to get anything off that? Probably not. You're probably just going to get punished. You could get really lucky with a bunch of tails and then be able to hit in with something else. If they get 3 tails in a row, you've kind of bought yourself a turn, which is okay. It's good, but that's a 1 in 8 chance of happening, so that's probably not going to happen. More likely, you're just going to flip out of it immediately, and then you're just going to get punched in the face. So that's not very good. Swablu, Poplio, Jigglypuff, all very underwhelming. Pound 10 for one Fairy. Like, Fairy's so bad, and Jigglypuff is one of the 2 Fairy attackers, is embarrassing. Jigglypuff's so bad. And then you got Meloetta, which also is Sing, but then for Psychic, Colorless, which is pretty expensive. It has okay payoff. Flip a coin for each of your Pokemon that has the Sing attack. This does 10 for each heads to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So I got this off in my one game, and it was good. Was it amazing? No, I think I only had one Pokemon with Sing in play, though. But quite frankly, the big issue here is that Meloetta is the only playable Pokemon out of these. The other 3 are so bad when you play them. They don't do any damage, really. They don't have anything interesting. They can kind of buy time, but that's about it. And if you're just using these Pokemon to buy time, that's annoying and not very fun. So this needs to be thought out a bit more. I think Jigglypuff's almost okay because it does damage, but the Sing package needs to be either improved by letting the other Sing attackers have actual attacks, or just scrapped completely. And so Meloetta is okay. Theoretically, you could also use Sleep as a package, which I was thinking about, but because there are a few Pokemon that put Pokemon to sleep in other ways, as well as you can use Slumbering Force to have a greater chance of your opponent staying to sleep. But is it good? Like, I don't think it's that good, right? It's just like hoping that they don't wake up, which is okay, but is it good? No, you're not really gonna get anywhere. So you can get more attachments, but so do they. You're just wasting time not doing anything. So the Sing package is so problematic. It's by far, it's bad. Like, Meloetta is fine as long as the other Pokemon are fine, but they're not fine. They're trash. So this needs to be reworked or scrapped. I think one of those 2. And so Meloetta, very problematic. Definitely, this is probably my least favorite package in the whole game. Lesser Rolla, as I said, very strong, but it's kind of fun still. A bit swingy, but Sing package, it could almost be overpowered too if you get an early Meloetta. You can just sweep. 80 health is really good. So I don't really like the way this works. We could get really lucky with the sleep. Who knows? And now we got a few more packages, which are also debatably problematic. I was going to call this problematic. The same idea with Coughing. If you play Birdkeeper, they can both attack for free. Now, one Rowlet for free, it does 60 snipe to one of the bench. That's insane. Like, you can just say to one of your opponent's Pokemon, bye. It just disappears. Like, it's insane. 60 snipe to the bench is absolutely, it's so good. I tried, okay, so stuff went wrong in my games. I made a misplay, but I was thinking I could go in with Rowlet. This was actually the Let's All rollout, going against me. I wasn't really able to deal with it because they got set up faster and stronger, but Rowlet with 3 energy is still okay, right? So you're getting more benefit out of Rowlet and out of Birdkeeper separately. Birdkeeper is a supporter that's switched to R3. I guess I didn't talk about Roxy either. Roxy's a solid supporter. Birdkeeper is a solid supporter, but Rowlet plus Birdkeeper can be very strong. Then you can all of a sudden be hitting a big attack out of nowhere. So separately, they're kind of interesting. Together, they actually work together. You get the benefit of both of them. Unlike Roxy, where you discard your Coughing and now it doesn't do its poison, which possibly was what you wanted it for, or you're just never wanted to poison in the first place, which just means it's a dead card. Now the 2 cards are working together, and it actually is interesting for this big payoff. Starly with Sky Circus. One, its attack's only 2, so it's obviously easier to pay off. Obviously, also worse. But search for 2 cards, and that's fine. I wish this was like a Pokemon with both a setup attack and a damage attack. But I think the Sky Circus package, which I've seen a few people play, is okay. It's not bad. It's not consistent, which is a bit problematic. But luckily, even when you don't hit the combo, you still get the benefits of all the Pokemon and trainers and stuff together. So it's you get them separately, but you get all of them. You're not you're missing out on this big combo, but at least you get Rowlet Snipe and Birdkeeper Switch and Starly Search if you want. It's not like you're all of a sudden, like with the coughing, you can't get Coughing's poison and its spread. You can only get one or the other, depending on whether you get it with Roxy or not. And so it's so, like, I don't like it. And the Pokemon Search isn't consistent enough to pull this off. Like, if I see I got Birdkeeper in my hand, I can't just get out Rowlet very consistently, which is a bit annoying. So I think if you wanted to, I think the Birdkeeper package is okay. It's a bit awkward, but it's okay. We also got the Janine package. So first of all, Janine's a bit weaker. I don't love it. I actually didn't include this, which now I think is a bit of a mistake. But one, Gligar is bad. Like, Gligar is pretty trash. The only good thing about it is it says if it has no energy, it has no retreat cost. Is this good? Yeah. It can be a pivot. So that's nice. If you have 3 energy, you can do Shinobi Strike. 30 for 3 is bad, obviously. And then 90 for 3, or 90 more. So 120 for 3 if you play Janine, which is absurd. But also, like, you don't need to, like, do 120 damage. The most you need is, I guess, 90. I guess you could need 120 if they have a Cragnole with a big charm. But the likelihood that you're going to pull that off is pretty much none, especially with them item locking you. Like, that's never going to happen. So that's kind of silly. Gligar just hits too hard. It's not really made for this format. It's so awkward to power up. Without Janine, it's hot trash. And Janine, you can only play once per game. Same thing with Birdkeeper and Roxy and all those. It's such a big commitment. And then after that, you're just like, it's so bad. Unlike with the Birdkeeper package, the birds, so assuming you get energy on them, you can be kind of setting up an attack one turn earlier with them with the Birdkeeper package or retreat them. They still have value, though, after you've used Birdkeeper. These other two are trash without Birdkeeper. Bubble Jutsu, doing 10 for 1's bad, right? 60 for 1's really solid, able to one-shot most things. Very, very competent attacker, Tentacool here. The Janine package, Janine's also like a... this package, this is problematic. It's kind of silly if you don't get Janine with one of these cards. And I don't think you should be waiting around to hope you get these cards together. As soon as you play Janine without these, they're useless, right? So I think Tentacool and Gligar are not great. Free Flight's a kind of cool ability, but quite frankly, if you can only play one Janine per game, these cards are bad. So I think these should probably be cut. The Tentacool Janine package is kind of cool. It's pretty straightforward, a bit easier to pull off than the Coughing combo, but I still don't like it. I think it's a bit problematic. And now, time to talk about trainers. There are a few problematic trainers, obviously ignoring the ones with the supporter combos. We got Crushing Hammer and Pokemon Catcher. So I talked about coin flips. I guess I should talk about my stance on coin flips. Coin flips are okay. They add some kind of fun, silly aspect to the game, and they make it, I don't know, they're interesting. They're certainly fine, as long as one individual coin flip doesn't have a massive change on the game, which in Standard can happen. Sometimes coin flip cards are just absurdly powerful, like, on a coin flip, you knock out your opponent's Pokemon, which is like absurd or something like that. But Crushing Hammer, is it too, like, in Standard, Crushing Hammer can be really swingy because you only get like 6 or 7 attachments across the course of the game sometimes, and then Crushing Hammer on a coin flip discards 1/7 of your energy, which is just absurd, essentially setting you back a whole turn in like a 6 turn game. So all of a sudden you might just lose off of heads if your opponent flips heads, or if they flip tails. That's just obviously useless for them, which is a card being useless in your deck will happen. That's okay. But a card just winning you the game if you get lucky, that's not fun. But I think Crushing Hammer in this format isn't as impactful, but it's still impactful. And also, you only have one. That's what I don't like. In Standard, you're going to go almost all the time. So, like, you're going to have, if you have 4 hammers, you're going to hit between 1 and 3. So you should hit a hammer. You shouldn't expect to hit all your hammers. As long as that goes your way, that's fine. You will have gotten rid of some energy, kind of accomplish your goal. To how much of an extent will you have accomplished that? I don't know. But you'll be some of the way there. Not all the way there. But Crushing Hammer in Standard is okay because you can discard some. You're essentially guaranteed to discard an energy across the course of the game. In this, you're not, right? You only have one Crushing Hammer. Who knows if it's going to hit or not? I was like one Crushing Hammer, that's kind of weird. It doesn't really make sense. It's a little control-y, but not that good. There's some other energy denial cards. There's Plumeria in this format, and I like that. But Crushing Hammer, I don't think it belongs here. I don't think this is the card that we need for this. I think that should just be cut. Let's see if okay, Pokemon Catcher. This is the only Gust in this format. You have one Pokemon Catcher. If you flip heads, that's really good. If you flip tails, sucks for you, right? Pokemon Catcher can be super swingy, and quite frankly, it's too swingy. Crushing Hammer is not that bad because you get like 20, 30 turns. No, you probably get like 10 to 20 turns, but that's still a lot. You're only losing a small fraction of your energy for the game, but Pokemon Catcher can drastically swing the game. If you're able to take an early price, possibly trap something in the active, which could happen, or force them to burn some more energies. Pokemon Catcher is just insane. I think we need some different form of gusting. The other event, I believe, had Guzma, which is just insane. I think that's too powerful. Arguably not, but I'm not sure. But I think we could have something like, you have Escape Rope as well, which works very well and has a similar effect to Catcher, but not as strong. I'm not sure what we need as the Gust, but I think Pokemon Catcher is not it. Possibly Counter Catcher, I think, would make a bit more sense than Pokemon Catcher, but I think Pokemon Catcher is bad. It's so swingy. Crushing Hammer is not super problematic, but I think having one Crushing Hammer index kind of weird. I say both of these should probably be cut. Boy, I have another really big thing about trainers that I got to talk about. That's trainers, and I'm going to say make them all supporters. So you may be thinking, first of all, what does this mean? So all the trainers, or at least there should be trainers, all the drawing trainers should be supporters, not items. And also probably cut out items altogether. And also you could maybe have tools and stadiums, but don't have items. Because right now, most of them are either supporters or items, which makes sense. Most decks play a lot of supporters, a lot of items, maybe a few tools, a few stadiums. So I think we don't want items. Quite frankly, the biggest issue that happened during the tournament was players bricking. And so, one, you could say just make the supporters better or something, or add more supporters, but I don't think that's the solution. I don't know. There's the GLC issue where everyone, essentially you have a bunch of cards that do the same thing, which isn't quite what you want. I think you just want you certainly want a lot of draw supporters, but they should all be unique. And there are a lot of unique draw supporters, but are they, they don't draw a lot, and you probably only have 10 or so, maybe 15, and that's not a ton. You're going to miss draw supporters sometimes. And also, you want to play items. So you want to have the potential to pop off on big turns early on with items. Because, playing items is just really important, right? Because now you can get out your Pokemon and also be drawing cards in the same turn. You can get out, energies and heal and stuff like that in the same turn that you play your supporter. But now when you play your supporter, that's really important every turn. So I think if each deck had 15, 20 supporters, maybe even 25, you'd be playing supporters every turn, right? But then you'd have a lot of interesting, unique supporters, and also it's not you're sitting against your opponent wondering, am I going to hit supporters this game? I could just miss supporters all game, and that happened a lot. There are a lot of people missing supporters for substantial portions of the game, and then they'd be oh, I got a quick ball or something, but that's not going to draw me out of this dead hand. So if everyone had 20 supporters, and there are so many different supporters in the game, not all of them draw. There's Agatha, probably my favorite trainer in the whole thing, which essentially heals you 30, damages your opponent. Really fun. Or it says move up to 3 damage counters from your active to your opponent's active. So if they've hit into you for 30, then you can heal off, deal damage, which is really nice. Sometimes they've only hit you for 20. You're going to move this back and forth. And so I think Agatha is really fun in this format, but arguably it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit weird, but in standard it's bad, but in this it's fun. And so I think I think we need them all to be supporters, quite frankly. You can have stadiums and tools too, but the big focus of trainers should be supporters. Items are just going to mess with people. They're a really high roll in the format where you don't have good control over your draws. So I think that's probably my biggest thing. Is this the right way to do it? I'm not sure, but I think there's obviously a change that's needed because people are struggling to hit their stuff, which is annoying. Like I lost 2, I won 1. The 2 I lost, I drew badly in both of those. I could add more supporters, but I don't know if that's the solution because you can always high roll with items, right? And then also, game I won, my opponent bricked, and I think my second game we actually both bricked. So my opponent bricked not the whole game, but I bricked the whole game. It was just kind of messy, and so I think the solution is make them all supporters. You could argue that the players should just only play supporters, but people are going to play some items. I think it would be fun if it was only supporters. You have these really interesting interactions, and yeah, I think that's my closing thought. Yeah, comment down below what you think of this format. I'll send it through the whole thing again. Yeah, this is the Mini League Event 1, my critique session. Comment down below if you want to see me talk about Event 2, which I haven't played too much in that format. But yeah, what are your thoughts on it? If you played in it, if you are working on the format, what are your thoughts? I'm really interested in hearing it. If you stuck through this whole video, I'm pretty sure it's pretty long, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm probably gonna make some more like custom Pokemon stuff in the future that I think you'll really like. I got a really cool Scarlet and Violet video planned for the future. I think everyone will love. And as always, I hope you enjoyed, and if you enjoyed, like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.